he just made a statement. Andy Green, after just 2 days as Mets manager, has already given high praise to one of the Mets' young arms, established a change going forward at first base, hosted a team clubhouse meeting that was highly praised by one of the Mets' key veterans, and also made a serious claim about the Mets' star-studded outfielder Juan Soto. What's going on, guys? I'm your host, Josh Byrne. You're tuned into Mets Digest. Guys, if you are not already, please do consider subscribing. 65% of viewers are not subscribed, and it means so much. And to those of you who are subscribed, again, thank you for watching and paying attention to our daily updates that continue today on Mets Digest and what has been a whirlwind of a week. So let's go over what exactly Andy Green has given the media in his first 48 plus hours as Mets interim manager. So we're going to start with this quote. He said, and this was amongst being introduced before the first game on Friday night, quote, "I don't think anybody dreams of sitting in this seat this way, especially when the person walking out the door has the level of character and competence that Mendy has." He goes on to say about the team's performance, Andy Green, "The best thing we can do is recognize what keeps most people from performing is the burden they carry with them to work every day." And I think here this quote is really interesting because he's getting at the mental side of the game. What has been mentioned so much about this Mets team is the establishment of value that so many of these guys have. Bo Bichette, Marcus Semien, who's now hurt, Freddie Peralta, Kodai Senga. These are all guys who have underperformed this season but have proven that they can perform in the past. And when you're given a set of expectations and you're continuously not hitting them, you would have to imagine that it is causing some sort of mental obstacles and mental barriers that these players are struggling to overcome because they are aware that they're not getting the job done. They are aware that things are seemingly going worse and rockier than they are used to, and it carries over and permeates throughout the entire clubhouse, the entire team, as the losses keep piling up. And when that happens, you need someone to have a voice of reason in the room to bring people together. And unfortunately, with the way the Mets season has gone, they had really no choice but to fire Carlos Mendoza. Nonetheless, there's still half a season left and they need a leader. And here's Andy Green's take on being the man to take over that spot. He said, quote, "There's been plenty enough people that have not loved my leadership style in different ways along the journey. You learn from that. You try to be the best you can for everybody." And look, I mentioned in my video yesterday that Andy Green, when he was manager of the Padres, people in the industry did not view him incredibly fondly. He had a very poor record, well below 500. He did not make the playoffs in any of those years with San Diego. Nonetheless, there are a lot of factors and variables that go into being a good manager, and I cannot sit here and tell you that I watched every game of Andy Green managing when he was the skipper for the Padres back then, and it certainly seems like a guy who is embracing the failure, if you want to call it, of his first stint as manager. And frankly, many, if not most, major league managers go through a couple of cycles, a couple of opportunities to learn from and grow and develop as a leader of a clubhouse. And this is easily a great opportunity for Andy Green to do that and try to fix some of the things in his management style that perhaps didn't work out last time. And it's very encouraging and refreshing to see that he's embracing that and getting back out into the dugout as the manager, the leader of the ship. Things did not start in a victorious fashion. As we know, Friday night, the Mets lost to the Phillies 2-1, but there were some bright spots. It wasn't the offense. They didn't do much at all. Really just one run. It's the same story we've been seeing all season. But Zach Thornton, we haven't really touched on this, and it hasn't been getting a lot of talk, but Thornton made his second start as a major leaguer, and he was fantastic. 6 innings, 1 run, You see the numbers there, 7 strikeouts, and keep in mind he only threw 78 pitches. He could have gone longer, but, they're trying to keep his confidence up. I agreed with the decision to go to Huascar Brazoban, even though he did end up giving the run. Obviously, hindsight's 2020. Brazoban's been amazing. The Mets probably didn't want to, push their luck with one of their young pitchers who had already established the best performance of his major league career and a really good stepping stone moving forward. Andy Green, this was his first opportunity to speak on a young player, a possible piece of the future, doing well and giving us a sense of how he is going to react to those kinds of things. And he said, you have to be pleased with the pitching tonight. Zach Thornton was really good. Now, unfortunately, the following day, Thornton was demoted to AAA. But even though a lot has been made of that, I would suspect that that's just because the Mets have a bullpen game slotted coming up, and they needed another arm out of the bullpen. I don't think this is a long-term demotion. In fact, I would not be surprised, and I actually do expect Zach Thornton to make another start in the next week, if not sooner, in about 5 or 6 days, because the Mets really don't have any options. So even if Thornton didn't have the great start he did on Friday night, I still would have thought there'd be a good chance we'd seen him soon, and the fact that he did well sort of cements that. Andy Green going on to say on the importance of what Christian Scott did the night after that. He said, I think we've known that was inside of him and who he is and who he's shown himself to be at every level. I think it was good on this stage for everybody to see that from him. That was actually on Zach Thornton because, again, it was really the first time that anybody had seen Thornton excel at the major league level. There'd been rumblings from AAA, oh, he looks good, he's got promise, but this was the first time we'd actually seen him perform on the grand stage and actually show the kind of potential that the Mets upper brass thinks he had. Green also cemented the fact that Jared Young is the Mets first baseman. Now, I think this was the direction the Mets were heading in anyways. I don't think this is solely a Andy Green decision here, but nonetheless, it is very encouraging to see that he is outright stating, quote, you're a lot better than you were with your last infield coach, because that kind of banter and joking camaraderie that SNY Mets tweeted about, as they said Andy Green joked with Jared Young that his infield defense has improved since Green was with the Cubs and he was their infield coach then. That shows Jared Young and Andy Green already have a close relationship, and Jared Young is having a really good season. And Andy Green's aware, and he says that he will play, quote, pretty consistently at first base, saying, quote, he's locking down kind of the lion's share of at-bats there. And that's the way it should be. Mark Vientos has been a disaster. Brett Beatty has been one of the worst hitters in the major leagues. Jared Young has actually been well above average, and he's actually made some decent defensive plays. I don't think he's been a liability at first base at all, and he has a serious argument on his side that he's the best Mets defensive first baseman as well as offensively at this point. And Saturday, Andy Green finally got rewarded, albeit 2 games. It's not like it's an eternity, but nonetheless, his first win as a Major League manager since 2019 in an official manager role, not just filling in for an ejected manager. And the Mets won 6-2 off of some really good pitching from Christian Scott, and we talked about it yesterday. The Mets got a really great performance from Scott considering he was coming off the injured list, and we didn't know when exactly he was going to come back, but he did the minimum time on the IL, came back, and while it wasn't the best outing of the season, he showed that he's comfortable, he's looking good, the stuff is there, it's strong, and Andy Green had to say, he put it simply, it's fun to have him back on the rotation, and it certainly is. And another keynote from yesterday's win is that it was just the 11th game that Francisco Lindor and Juan Soto were both in there. And this was something that really accelerated the expectations of the Mets, just having those 2 stars in the lineup. Obviously, a lot has gone wrong, and there's a lot of other reasons why the Mets are where they are. But this was just the 11th game they were in there together. And Andy Green had this to say about it, quote, I think what's that's what everybody was hoping to see repetitively all summer long. It's good to see it out there today. And it certainly is. Lindor had RBI triple. Soto got on base 3 times. And it's extremely unlikely the Mets pull themselves back into the playoff positioning. But if you're going to watch the games, then it's nice to see the 2 superstars right there at the top and middle of the Mets order, and certainly improves the offense moving forward. But speaking of Juan Soto specifically, he's having a fantastic season when you look at the numbers. 950 OPS, 17 home runs. Of course, he did miss a little bit of time with a calf strain back in April into May, so he's only played 63 games, but he has one of the most productive lines in all the league. And this was pretty strong words from Andy Green, who said, quote, "He's the best player in baseball. It's special what he does in the batter's box." I mean, that's huge, because do I think Andy Green genuinely believes Juan Soto is the best player in baseball? Probably not, because Shohei Ohtani exists. But nonetheless, Soto is so good, and he means so much to this team, that as the manager of the Mets, you best believe you are going to tell the media he is the best player in the game. He's easily top 5. He's a top 3 hitter. And so when you have a guy of that caliber, you do go out and say he is the best player. It is what you do. Even if he's technically not, when you look at, other guys who are just objectively otherworldly. And Soto really can't do anything to extend himself above a guy like Shohei. He can't pitch, so, that's something that's not totally, in his control. But as a Mets manager, yeah, this is a very encouraging sign and a very strong quote in terms of the symbolism here. It shows that Andy Green is buying into this team. He's buying into Soto, and he's buying into the brand of roster that's led by him. And when you're trying to unify and rally a clubhouse, those types of quotes go a long way, because Soto, he's certainly dissatisfied with where this season has gone, but you've got to think that means a lot to him in establishing trust. Soto is very upset with the firing of Carlos Mendoza. He wasn't necessarily upset with the Mets, because I think he understood it, but him and Mendoza had a close relationship. There was a lot of trust. And Andy Green, he's going to be his own person. But this at least establishes that there is a immense amount of respect, immense amount of trust, and their relationship, Soto and Green, is going to be important for the foreseeable future. And speaking of the veterans as a whole, AJ Minter has become not only one of the Mets' best relievers, and the Mets have a lot of really good relievers, but he's taken on a leadership role, which makes sense. He's a veteran. He's been around the block. He's won a World Series. He knows what it takes to win. And it was reported by Mark Sanchez that Andy Green, actually made a clubhouse speech that was leaked to the media by AJ Minter that, quote, lifted a lot of weight off of the Mets' shoulders after the Carlos Mendoza firing. It's really great to see, and AJ Minter seemed very appreciative of the words that Andy Green had. He said, quote, "The speech was something that got us fired up Friday night. A lot of guys were like, wow, that was actually pretty good. We were excited to go play and are excited again tonight." That was said yesterday before the Mets went out and won. And yeah, the Mets didn't win on Friday night. You're not going to win every game. Certainly the Mets haven't won most games this year. But anything that can rally the team, keep them focused, and perhaps, dare I say, rejuvenate them at this point of the season when it seems like everything is seemingly lost. Players don't know if they're going to stay. They don't know about the future. Fans are starting to tap out. That is incredibly meaningful, to have a guy who can bring together a roster, bring together veterans who have seen a lot of good and bad, and have a manager who can instill immense confidence in them. And again, going back to the theme of trust, instituting that across the locker room and buying in. Do I believe that the Andy Green era will lead the Mets to a unprecedented run here to get back into the playoff mix? Probably not, because the numbers are the numbers and the Mets have to play extremely good baseball the rest of the way, which is just not likely given the hole they're in. But it is really encouraging to see that Andy Green is making these deliberate, concrete statements about how he is going to get better, how the team is going to get better, and having moments where he is praising the team, buying into the team, talking them up, and bringing them together. Perhaps with a new context, with a new situation, with a new guy at the helm, we can see a different identity in the Mets that is reflected on the field. Let me know what you guys think of Andy Green's media statements to the media his first couple days, what you think of his managerial decisions, and how you see his impact leading the Mets moving forward. Comment below, let me know, and as always, let's go Mets.